Yo, what's up, guys? We're back for another breakdown and predictions video, and this we got a lower level card in my opinion, but still good opportunities to make money, and we've been killing it in terms of bets, man. We cashed on another plus 1,000 underdog last week in the UFC, profited once again for the third or fourth straight week in a row for UFC, so definitely been doing really well in terms of that on patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru, and I got some other bets going on for this card already that I'm pretty confident in. So this is a week that I think we're definitely going to cash out and make some decent money. And outside of that, man, hit the like button, put some comments down below, go check out Patreon, get those bets, and let's keep giving out this good information, man. Let's try to expand the channel and get more views. Been a little disappointed with the amount of views I've been getting lately. Hopefully I can start getting a little bit more support and gonna start trying to put these videos out earlier in the week. I know that probably has an impact on it that I put my videos out usually a lot later than almost everyone else, but hopefully you guys could still support, watch this video, share it, check it out, watch the whole thing. Helps the algorithm. And outside of that, man, let's just get in this first fight here. I do know that there's a couple fights that got added late, so gonna be doing a separate video for those, but we're just gonna start on this fight, Christian Leroy Duncan versus Claudio Ribeiro. And CLD, Christian Leroy Duncan, he's kind of looking to rebuild his stock. He came into the UFC, he was a former Cage Warriors champion, he had an undefeated record, and he had some hype behind him, but won his debut kind of a fluky way where his opponent got hurt, and then his second fight he went in there with Armen Petrosian and took a loss, and that fight kind of made a lot of people jump off the bandwagon. He did come back, get a finish win over Dennis Tululin, but still trying to kind of get back to where he was when he first got in the UFC, and now he's fighting Claudio Ribeiro, who's a knockout artist. He has 11 wins, all 11 of those wins are via knockout. He has a killer be killed style in the UFC. All three of his fights have ended in a KO, either win or lose. He had a knockout win over Joseph Holmes, had knockout losses to Roman Kopylov and Abdul Razak Al Hassan. And Ribeiro, he's getting a good opportunity to beat someone that does have a name and kind of reinvigorate his career a little bit. So Christian Leroy Duncan, he has more to lose here, and I think a little bit more pressure. But he's a fighter people enjoy to watch because you don't see big 185ers move how Duncan does. He's very fast. He can switch stances, moves in and out quickly. He has a good ability to find the chin with really, really wild techniques. He has multiple spinning attack knockouts. He has a flying knee knockout. His hands are, I would say, average, but his foot speed and his kicks are very impressive. He has very fast kicks. He has good feints, good fakes. He throws a lot of front kicks, round kicks to the legs, and he has good upper body movement, so he can pull counter with lead hooks or crosses. And his ability to move out of range for someone his size is pretty impressive. And when he goes southpaw, he will switch stance. Like I said, he throws a lot of lead leg side attacks, lead leg side kicks, spinning attacks, and on the inside he throws nice elbows. He has landed several spinning elbows. He has a couple spinning elbow knockouts. I haven't really seen him in there with great pressure fighters yet. We did see Armen Petrosian had success countering Duncan. He had success landing leg kicks, and he stayed smart. He didn't really give Duncan a lot of opportunities to land anything wild, and the basics won Petrosian the fight. When Petrosian went first and threw some 1-2s, which really isn't his game, he was able to rock and hurt Duncan, so I do think that kind of adds to my belief that a pressure fighter could give him some problems. But Duncan has these explosions where he can close the distance, land something very big, and finish the fight. He's dynamic, he's dangerous, and the majority of his wins are via finish. His wrestling and his grappling are okay. He has questionable takedown defense, and he will let guys hold him against the cage, but he has a good clinch work himself with good knees, good elbows. His cardio, his composure is good, so if guys take him down, he can reset the following round and have good gas tank. And he can mix it up himself. He can land some blast doubles. I don't think he's the great wrestler. He doesn't really set his takedowns up that well, but he will look for it, and he's decent on top. But his last fight, he did have some good clinch control with against Dennis Tululin. Tululin isn't a good wrestler, but it showed at least some evolution in his game. And in this fight, I don't think that it's likely that Ribeiro is going to be looking to clinch or get the takedown. So we'll see. I mean, in Ribeiro's one win to Joseph Holmes, he did mix it up a little bit, but I think Duncan is a little bit of a notch above Joseph Holmes. But one thing about Duncan is he's never been submitted, so that's good. And his cardio is top-notch, too, so he's someone that can push the pace. He's been 5 rounds. If you saw in his loss with Petrosian, even after taking damage, after losing the first 2 rounds, he was pretty fresh in that last minute of the fight. And Claudio Ribeiro, extremely athletic. He has big power in both hands. He has big power, particularly in his left hook. And he likes to counter-strike primarily. He'll throw heavy leg kicks. He'll hang back, feint, pull fighters into his right cross, overhand, or left hook. And he will expose himself when he throws, but if he connects, it can be lights out. If you counter his looping strikes with straight punches, you can land first and get him out of there. We saw that in the Rozak fight. But if Ribeiro wants to be successful in this matchup, in my opinion, he's going to have to pressure a little bit more. This is going to be one of the first fights where he is likely going to be at a reach disadvantage. So if he stays on the outside, I just don't think he's going to be able to compete on points there. I think CLD has more weapons and obviously the length edge. And I just don't see how Ribeiro gets it done sitting on the outside. He has to try to get on the inside, make it ugly, and land that bomb. His last fight, he got put to sleep with a really nasty head kick. So you know that he's probably thinking in the back of his head he's facing another guy with really fast head kicks. And maybe that's going to make him want to close the distance to try to wrestle. And if he does do that, I think he could gas. But Ribeiro is someone that is a little bit smaller for 185. He came into the Dana White Contender Series fight at 181. But he did hit a double in his fight with Joseph Holmes. He grappled a bit in that fight. It's usually not a big part of his game, but his top game looked good in that match, and he was almost able to finish the fight towards the end of the first round with ground and pound. So I think if he can get on top of Duncan, he could have success. It's just I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do that over 3 rounds, and I don't think it's likely he's going to finish him on the ground. I think Duncan's a little bit too good on the mat to get finished early with ground and pound or something, and Ribeiro's not really too much of a submission threat. I feel like Ribeiro's cardio is not on the same level as Duncan's either, so I just feel like Duncan has the edge there. He has more tools on the feet. I think he should win this fight, most likely. He's going to have to be smart at distance. I think he has the ability to pull counter. I like the ability that he has to slide out of the way of strikes so quickly. I think that's going to be key in this matchup. And if he could slip in return, he could put Ribeiro to sleep, I feel. And I think his size should allow him to control the clinch, not get taken down. I think he has the cardio advantage, like I said. So I feel like this fight has a really low likelihood of going 15 minutes. Both fighters are finishers with power, and it's going to be a stand-up fight more than likely. I will say Duncan gets to finish in the second or third. I think that's a decent thing to target betting-wise, because I feel like Ribeiro could slow down. Duncan tends to pick it up as the fight goes on. When he sees guy get tired, he will try to finish him. So I think Duncan finishing in that late second, third round is definitely a good possibility. And I'm going to predict Christian Leroy Duncan wins via second round KO TKO. And up next year, we got a really difficult fight to predict, in my opinion. A fight that is contested this week with people liking the Razabov side. People were liking the Abdul Karim Al-Sawadi side. But me personally, I don't really have a huge lean or great read on this fight. I feel like when you look at it on paper, Loic Razabov, he had that long career. Before coming to the UFC, he was known from the PFL. He made some decent money. He made it to the tournament finals, I believe, twice, and wasn't able to cash in on that $1 million dream. So he wasn't able to really rack out where you could say now he's not trying as hard and he has the money like a Felipe Lins or something, who even turned his career around a little bit. But he did make some money before coming to the UFC, and he's getting up there in age, and I just haven't liked his UFC performances. I just don't know exactly if he has the same motivation or maybe the age is catching up to him. I don't know what it is, but I feel like his fight with Esteban Ribovics, he made the fight more competitive than it had to be. He almost got finished in the second round. And then his last fight, he went in there with Mateusz Rebecki and missed weight, got dominated in the fight, gassed out pretty quickly. So I feel like Radzab was kind of going in the wrong direction. But I'm not totally sold on Abdul Karim Al-Sawadi either. I've seen Al-Sawadi look really good in his last fight on the Contender Series, but in previous fights where he fought a little bit more similar fighters to Radzabov, he's had some issues. He hasn't necessarily ran them all over, even though he's gotten the win. But the way these two guys match up, you look at Radzabov, he's a tank. He is someone that usually is the short, compact guy in his matchups. And this one, he's actually going to be 3 inches taller, which is going to be kind of a welcome thing for him, I bet. But he likes to throw the big right hand, just kind of big hooks, has power in his hands. He'll not really go to the body. He doesn't mix in too many kicks. His last fight, he really struggled with leg kicks and body kicks for Mateusz Rebecki. He got his legs really eaten up, and by the beginning of the second round, he was basically done just off the leg kick damage. So Abdul Karim Al-Sawadi will throw leg kicks, but I haven't really seen him commit and throw hard, super heavy leg kicks. They're more kind of touching to find his range. So unless he comes with a different game plan in this fight, leg kick heavy, then I don't know if it's going to be as big of a danger as Rebecki's leg kicks, but Radzabov really struggled with that, and then Radzabov struggled defending the takedown. He couldn't really defend the takedown on Rebecki, who I think is a lot better wrestler than Al-Sawadi, but Al-Sawadi does mix in the takedowns. It's a big part of his game too, and obviously Radzabov got finished in the second round in that fight, so hopefully kind of put that bad performance behind him and show his skill set, which is good ability to grind. He actually has good wrestling himself, big power in his punches. And in this fight, I would look to sprawl and brawl, or if you could put Al-Sawadi on his back, which I think is going to be a little bit difficult, I would try more to just strike than do that. But I think that Radzabov has the power advantage, and if he can make it a pure stand-up fight, it could be competitive, because I don't really trust Al-Sawadi striking. Al-Sawadi, his last fight, had a great striking performance. He was sticking and moving. He was able to close the distance quick. And I do feel like his movement will give Radzabov issues. But I've seen Al-Sawadi eat big shots, and he has a good chin, but he's been knocked out before. He takes a lot of clean strikes. And when he gets hit, sometimes he doesn't have a great reaction. So it could be bad on the judges and just not look good in general. If he can't get the wrestling going in this fight, I think it's like 50-50. If he can hit the takedowns, I feel like he'll gas Radzabov out, and he has the better gas tank. And Al-Sawadi is a very smart, analytical fighter, so I wouldn't be shocked if he comes in here with more of a heavy leg kick game plan and sitting down and throwing harder leg kicks after we saw Radzabov's last fight. And if he does that, I think that could be successful. So I feel like Al-Sawadi, he's the guy on the win streak. He's the one that's coming up, has more momentum and more hunger, I believe. And I feel like he has more weapons, the better cardio. So I'm going to give it to Al-Sawadi, but I just wouldn't be surprised if goes in here, Radzabov shuts his takedowns down, has the power advantage, and beats him up with some punches and either knocks him out or kind of wins by having the bigger power in a close fight. So I think it's a close matchup, but I'm going to actually predict Al-Sawadi wins a competitive decision. And moving along the card, I think we got an underrated and interesting fight here with Aiemann Zahabi taking on Javi Basharat. I feel like a lot of people really hate on Aiemann Zahabi. They don't like his style, and I get it. I mean, he has a boring style when he doesn't land that one-hitter quitter, but I think that people underrate the guy because you look at him like he's not someone that you're going to say he wins the walking off the bus contest, right? Like if you see him coming off the bus, you're looking at him, you're looking at fucking Francis Ngannou and all these other guys, you're not going to be thinking Amin Zahabi as much of anything, right? He kind of looks like just like a ho-hum guy, but he's won 3 fights in a row. He's been able to stick around in the UFC for a long time, and I feel like he has a lot better skills than people give him credit for. But he's running into a guy in Javi Basharat in this fight where he's going to be a significant underdog. He is a significant underdog because Javi Basharat's undefeated and has been nothing short of impressive in the UFC. He's been able to mix it up with his wrestling and his striking and just been pretty high level across the board throughout his whole career. But I feel like this is a good fight. You look at Amin Zahabi, he is someone that is a low volume counter striker on the feet that has some of the best defense in my opinion, at least to defend head strikes in that division. He's very Sean Strickland-esque, man. I feel like people don't rate his defense as highly as maybe they should. Like a lot of people say, oh, it's because of the Ricky Turcios fight that his significant strike defense rate is the number 1 in the bantamweight division. But you look at some of his other fights, like everyone that he fights is hitting like 15 to 30% on head strikes on Zahabi. He's very hard to hit to the head. He has that same modified Philly shell kind of defense, and then he has the weird blocks that he'll use and kind of a weird guard, and he's difficult to hit. You know, he has a good ability to read distance. He doesn't really close distance and give guys opportunities to catch him on the counter and things like that. So he's a smart fighter, and then you have to respect him now too, because when you close the distance on him, he's throwing heat. He's throwing big punches, big left hook, big right hand, and he has significant power. I mean, it doesn't look like it, but he has some of the bigger power in his hands of any fighter at bantamweight. He has 2 one-punch knockouts in his last 3 fights. You know, hand down, man down, like Mark Jackson says, like mama, there goes that man. But not Amin Zahabi. He's gotten 2 one-punch knockouts in his last 3 fights. The guy's been out here putting on good performances, and the one thing that we haven't really seen him against since his fight with Ricardo Ramos, and he struggled in that fight with Ramos, with this is an active leg kicker, and I think that could be a factor in this fight. I don't know if necessarily Zahabi has the same defense to leg kicks, to body kicks, just to kicks in general. We're going to have to see, you know, if he could check the leg kicks of Basharat and defend that, then I think it could become a lot more competitive striking fight, because Zahabi does have power, and Basharat, comes in usually with his hands down. So if he gets countered with a big shot early, gets dropped or something, even knocked out potentially, then it's kind of a moot point. But if he gets dropped, then maybe he could be a little bit hesitant and kind of not as willing to engage, and it could become a lot closer fight, especially if Zahabi's able to deal with the kicking game on the outside. But if Basharat's able to get ahead with the leg kicks, I think that could be the difference in the fight, because Zahabi isn't going to be someone that's going to engage like that and change kind of the dynamic with pressure or anything. He's going to be still trying to stick to his game plan to find that big counter. And if Basharat can just chip away at him with kicks, then that's going to be more of the fight. And the other thing in this fight that we're going to see and find out from both these guys really is who has the better grappling. I mean, Zahabi's a black belt. You look at his fight with Ricardo Ramos, he did get taken down a couple times, but showed really good ability to get right back up to his feet. I believe he even swept Ramos, or was able to get on top of him at one point. I know he had more control time in the fight than Ramos did, even though he was the one that was taken down a couple times and he never got a takedown. But I do think Basharat will be able to take down Zahabi and probably be able to do it whenever he wants to fairly easily. It's just going to come down to if he's going to be able to hold Zahabi down, or if Zahabi's going to be able to get right back up and kind of nullify the grappling a little bit. But at the end of the day, Zahabi's a good nullifier. He's someone that has that one-punch knockout power, so he brings a danger factor and danger element that I think people don't talk about enough, but Basharat should probably be able to get ahead with leg kicks, mix in the takedowns, and just be the smarter and more well-rounded kind of new age MMA fighter. Whereas Javi has really good skills. He's difficult to hurt. He's difficult to land on. He's probably not going to get finished on the ground. But I don't know if he's going to be able to bring the volume and deal with the leg kick output of Basharat, deal with maybe the 4 or 5 takedowns. If Basharat even doesn't have a lot of damage or significant control or gets to dominant positions, the takedowns are going to count in a kind of lower volume type of fight. So I just feel like Basharat's probably going to win this one cleanly via decision. So give me Javi Basharat to take this fight 30-27 or maybe 29-28. And for this next fight, if you ask me, you got a bit of a squash match here with Eryk Anders versus Jamie Pickett. Eryk Anders seems like this is a rebound fight for him. You know, longtime UFC veteran. He's been up and down in the UFC. He's 7-8-1 overall. Had some good wins, but lost 3 of his last 4 fights. Even in his losses, he never really performs badly, but he probably needs to win here for sure to keep his job. I mean, a loss to Jamie Pickett, 4 in his last 5, probably going to get cut off that, but Jamie Pickett, he's lost 4 in a row in the UFC, so it's been over 2 years since the last time he won a fight. He's 2-6 overall. I think the UFC keeps him around because he's willing to fight anyone, anytime, anywhere. He'll take short notice fights, but obviously 4 losses in a row, I don't see him hanging around after 0-5. So this is a make or break fight for both guys. I think their jobs are on the line. And Jamie Pickett has kind of been the guy to me that has shown more of that in his training. He's taken his training up a notch for this fight. He's had a full camp. He normally hasn't had that with the UFC. He's training with Jim O-Tribe in North Carolina, which has other UFC fighters that are similar to Eryk Anders actually. So his training and coaches are going to be a notch above normal for him. And for Eryk Anders, he's had his camps recently, or at least some of them, at Fight Ready MMA. And he's gone to bigger, more established gyms, kind of just getting some training in. But I believe for this camp, he's stayed in Alabama at Spartan Fitness Academy, which is his original gym. And he's been doing some commentary work, different things. So I feel like he might not be taking this fight as serious. I mean, hard to say because he would be dumb not to. But maybe he thinks he can beat someone like Pickett with less sacrifices. But Anders did recently become a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I think that he's going to be looking to use his grappling in this fight, maybe find that submission if he can. Hasn't had a submission in a long time. But style-wise, you look at these guys, Jamie Pickett, well-conditioned guy, super long reach. He's going to have a 82-inch reach, which is, he's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage. But he brings the pressure. He tries to throw long jabs, straight punches, crash into the clinch, and he uses his length, his cardio, and clinch to kind of control and wear out guys when he can get them, when he can make fights his way. And when he's forced on the back foot, he really struggles. He doesn't really offer much going backwards. Doesn't have great hands. He will throw some side kicks, but no real heat to the kicks to me. His last fight, he was doing a better job of landing his right body kick and some rear crosses, backing up, but I don't really see him ever becoming a great striker. And he doesn't have power or finishing instincts in the striking department, so I feel like he has to rely more on grinding things out. He does have a good chin, but his defense isn't really that good either. But Pickett isn't a bad wrestler. I feel like Anders probably could take him down. I mean, he got out-wrestled by Dawkins, but Pickett seems like he's getting better in that department. And he has good training partners, like I said, at the output to work with to try to mimic Eryk Anders. Like, he has Chris Weidman, southpaw pressure guy, that's in there with him that could potentially mimic him a little bit. He has John Salter, also a southpaw grappler. So those guys are good looks to have when you're going to be fighting someone like Eric Anders in your camp. But I feel like Pickett, if he gets put on his back here, he's going to be in trouble. I don't know if he'll get finished, but I think he'll get easily dominated, and there is a potential of a finish. And I just don't see him, more than likely, I just don't know if he's going to be able to use that clinch work and grind out a guy like Anders who's that physical. I feel like Anders is going to be able to, on the inside, use that dirty boxing, his size advantage and strength advantage. And Anders usually does good when he fights this mid-tier level competition. He's durable, he could take shots, he's pressure fighter. His wrestling isn't great, but he's good at cage pushing on guys. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised to see Anders get takedowns in this fight. He hasn't been the most prolific finisher in the UFC, but if he can use his explosiveness, throw those big punches, get Pickett backing up, get Pickett kind of looking for the way out, then get on top of him, I think Pickett maybe will give him that out. Pickett seems like when things get tough, he will look for the door a little bit. So this fight could be a finish for Anders if he fights to his maximum capacity, but just like I was talking about earlier, I don't know if he's going to be at his same level that he is when he goes and trains at Fight Ready and things like that. So I could see this fight also kind of becoming a 3-round clinch fest too. So officially I'm going to say Anders wins via decision here. And I think he's a pretty safe guy you could parlay up this week. I don't see a lot of path to victory for Pickett here. I just don't think he has the ability to knock Anders out unless it's kind of just a freak thing, and I think Anders can out-grapple him too. And this next fight, we got another squash match, really, with Umar Nurmagomedov taking on Basharat Mockin. And Umar, he's getting back into it after a year away from fighting, and I feel like he would have to be extremely disappointed with this opponent. I mean, he's been calling out everyone under the sun in the top 5, top 10. He had a fight scheduled with Corey Sandhagen, and now off the injury and the layoff, he's facing a relatively unknown guy that's making his UFC debut. I believe Nurmagomedov had shoulder surgery, and he's still young, so maybe they wanted a tune-up fight like this and asked for it, but it's a little bit of weird matchmaking, and obviously he's had problems getting higher-ranked fighters to accept fights with him, so that could also be a factor in this, but his opponent has a really good record, 17-1, 26-year-old Kazakhstan guy. He's been fighting for Octagon, which is a pretty big promotion over there in his region, and he's won 9 fights in a row. Mockin, I mean, he's getting thrown to the lion's den here, though. He's facing a guy who some see as the uncrowned king of the division. It's going to be his first fight with the promotion. I mean, gigantic underdog here, and if he wins, it's going to be one of the biggest upsets in UFC history. But to me, he's kind of an average fighter, Mockin. I mean, he plays a similar game to Umar, where he likes to move on the outside counter-strike and then mix in the takedowns. Good body kicks. He could throw kicks with both legs, and he will try to counter with 1-2s. His uppercut is okay. I've seen him get a couple head kick knockouts, so he's dangerous with the head kicks. Uses that kind of same setup as Leon Edwards. But he isn't as active or diverse with his kicks at distance in comparison to Nurmagomedov. I feel like he has a questionable chin too. I've seen him get knocked down in multiple fights. I've seen him get hurt in fights. And he likes to kind of get fighters thinking of striking and then time the body locks, and he can wrestle pretty effectively. Good top control. He isn't anything special in the wrestling or grappling regard, but he's solid. I don't see him being a threat really to Umar Nurmagomedov there. And I did see a fight where Mockin got taken down, dominated, and ultimately submitted with the guillotine. And I've seen him get taken down in more than one fight. So ultimately, if I was him, I would try to sprawl and brawl in this one and win that way. But either way, he's up against it. His opponent, Umar Nurmagomedov, we all kind of know his style. Elite level kicker. He has extreme speed too. He's someone that could control the distance on the outside with his myriad of kicks, question mark kicks, spinning kicks, head kicks, body kicks, leg kicks, kicking with both legs. And his last fight, he showed good power in his left hook. He's not really a great puncher to me, but was able to get a nice knockout there. His ability to control that distance is really good. I think of someone that could pressure him, stuff the takedown, and really get in his face, can maybe take advantage of those leans and hitability at some occasions, but Umar's so fast. He has excellent footwork, and then if you really pressure him like that, he's going to take you down. So it's just extremely difficult puzzle to solve. And great body locks, good freestyle wrestling. On top, he has good active ground and pound. He's gotten a little bit more vicious and of a finisher on the mat, and good rear naked chokes. He has a decent guillotine. I feel like he has a good chance to get the submission in this fight, and I see this fight similar to his fight he had with Sergey Morzov, where he's fighting another Kazakh guy that has decent skills everywhere. I think Morzov's actually better than Mockin, actually, but that Umar is going to be a level above and ultimately either catch and knock out or catch in a scramble and submit. So I see Nurmagomedov getting this one done inside the distance, and I'll predict he wins this fight via first round submission. And continuing on through the main card, we got Matt Schnell taking on Steve Erceg here in a ranked fight at flyweight. Steve Erceg's trying to break into that top 10. Matt Schnell's looking to defend his number 9 spot. But Matt Schnell, it's been a year-long layoff for him. He last fought December 3rd, 2022. He was scheduled to fight a couple times since then, but had to pull out due to injuries. He was actually supposed to face Steve Erceg at UFC 295, but couldn't make the fight. And 34 years old now, so he's one of the oldest flyweights on the roster. And the UFC flyweights that are actually 34 or older, currently signed to the UFC, are 2-5, and both of the wins are from Tim Elliott. So most of the time when you're this age at flyweight, you're on your way out. So Matt Schnell's going to have to defy the odds to get the win here. He's pulled the upset in the UFC before, and he's live to get it done because he's dangerous. He has a killer be killed style. And his opponent, Steve Erceg, he jumped onto the scene pretty quickly. He was able to get that short notice fight with a ranked fighter in David Dvorak, and went in there, got the decision win over Dvorak in a big upset, and then followed that up with another good fight, good victory over Alessandro Costa. So if he could beat the top 10 gatekeeper in Matt Schnell, he's going to get a high-ranked fight next. So 6 wins in a row for Erceg. He's in his prime at 28, and he's been active, so that's why he's the favorite here. But when you look at these guys stylistically, Matt Schnell's a fighter who's always good for a fun time. He puts himself in the fire. Most of his fights end in a finish. 17 of Schnell's fights have ended inside the distance. Only 5 have gone the distance. Normally when he loses, he's getting knocked out. When he wins, it's via triangle. And he's had a couple of huge wins kind of slip through his fingers. He dropped and had Alexandra Pantoja badly hurt. And he also knocked down Brandon Royval and had Royval in some trouble. So Schnell, could have had some wins over some of the best guys in the world, but just ended up getting overzealous and getting finished himself. But Matt Schnell is a highly skilled guy on the feet. He's southpaw. He has good effective pressure, fast, good length. He has good feints and educated lead hand. He throws a lot of jabs or double jabs and lead hooks. He uses his lead hand to open up his big left cross. Fast, he's dangerous because he's willing to stay in the pocket and commit to his punches. And he has decent head movement. He'll slip and return with combinations. Great cardio so he could push the pace. Doesn't really kick much and really only attacks the head, so he's not that hard to read. He needs to mix in more kicks, mix in more body attacks in his style. But he's hittable. His chin isn't great. He has good toughness and recoverability because he's in shape, but he's been knocked out in multiple fights, and there's been fights where he's been winning, looking like the better fighter, and then just got put to sleep. So there's always that danger with Matt Schnell, and he doesn't check leg kicks either, so just smart tactic to utilize leg kicks against him. His last fight, he struggled a lot with the speed of Mateus Nicolau. He couldn't see that left hook coming and got knocked out. He has good hand speed, but his foot speed isn't that great. Can be a little flat-footed, and guys that can close that distance quick, get out on him, can give him issues. And it was a very awkward reaction, him getting knocked out his last fight, And he's had that happen where he's had these weird reactions getting knocked out more than once. So hopefully he could bounce back from that and still has a chin. But he's dangerous everywhere, even on the ground. He's improved his timing on his takedowns. He shoots in between exchanges and can hit easy level changes. He isn't the most active wrestler, but his wrestling has been pretty effective recently. And he has nasty ground and pound. He has good top control. More of an opportunistic submission guy where he catches guillotines and scrambles, catches triangles, triangle arm bars. And one thing about him, though, is he's been caught in a guillotine on 3 separate occasions. So that's a choke he's shown he's susceptible to. And he doesn't, in my opinion at least, have the wrestling to take down someone with the capability of Steve Erceg, even with his improved wrestling. So he's going to have to rely on either knocking Erceg down to get on top or Erceg taking him down to implement his jiu-jitsu that way. But Steve Erceg, similar style to Matt Schnell actually. He's tall, he's long, likes to pressure and box. Good jab, he stays active. Throws some 1-2s, jab overhand rights. Good ability to throw the lead hook to the body, then come over the top with the big rear hand to the head. And he will let go with nice combinations when fights are in the inside. And when he fights at range, he'll stay active. He's pretty accurate. He can land off the back foot with check hooks, pull 2s. Good knees when fighters crash inside. I would say he's the more diverse striker here. And he's composed. He's defensively sound. A little bit more than Schnell. He also doesn't have the greatest defense, but he rolls with shots well. He does a better job of slightly getting out of the way. And he is hittable, but I feel like he is more durable. And Erceg, he tends to pick up as fights go on. He can get cracked early and get hurt, but starts to pick fighters apart when he finds his rhythm. And if I was Erceg, I would look for more leg kicks in this fight. And as long as Erceg is able to be the guy going forward and not get backed up, I think he'll be effective in the striking. And Erceg is a good wrestler. He's well-rounded. He will time takedowns in between exchanges, and I think he's a bit more physical and has better clinch takedowns and chain wrestling. His takedown defense and get-up game is really solid. Clinch game is on point. He's skilled everywhere. I haven't really seen Erceg in the guard of someone like Schnell, so that's something I'm not sure of, but his jiu-jitsu looks good, and he has dangerous guillotine and front chokes, so I feel as if that's a viable path to victory for him, that guillotine. And he's going to have to be careful on the ground, though, with Matt Schnell if it does go there, because Matt Schnell is a dangerous guy. He can submit anyone there, but this is a good matchup. I mean, both guys are very skilled. They have the ability to finish, and even if Erceg has yet to earn a submission in the UFC, I think he could hurt Schnell, get him on the back foot, and club and sub him, or just catch a guillotine in a scramble. I think Erceg is just the better all-around fighter. Schnell is coming back off a year-long layoff. He's older. He's already taken a good amount of damage. So, although I respect his skills, I just don't think he's likely to win. And I'm going to predict Steve Erceg wins via second-round submission. And up next, we got Alex Perez taking on Mohamed Mokaev. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. I mean, it's a difficult fight to break down, really. I mean, Alex Perez, pull-out merchant. I mean, what else can you say? The guy's had like one fight in the last 4 years and 10 pullouts or something. And at one point, he was one of the best flyweights in the world. Like, he ran through Formiga, had a competitive fight with a couple highly touted guys. But at the end of the day, he hasn't really done much in the sport. When you look at it, you know, he didn't beat that many fighters that became higher level. When he took that step up, he usually got finished. And he just hasn't been reliable. He's a high-level wrestler. I mean, we know that. He has decent pressure boxing, but I feel like he really struggles to make 125. I don't know why he continues to try to make this weight class. It seems like he has issues almost every time and either pulls out or misses weight. But I guess he feels like he can't compete at 135. And he's taking on Mohamed Mokaev, who's one of these fighters that has popped onto the scene since Alex Perez has kind of had these pull-out issues and surpassed him, moved up into the upper echelon of the rankings. But Mohamed Mokaev also, to me, is kind of, even though he's gone undefeated, has disappointed a little bit because he came into the UFC with extremely high expectations, with people that were saying that he's already at the level of the title challengers or the UFC champions when he got to the UFC. But since he's got here, he's had these fights with lower level opposition like the Malcolm Gordons, like Jafel Filo, and he's been put in really bad positions and had competitive fights. He was down 2018 to Tim Elliott in his last fight, for instance, as well, before he got that third round submission. So he hasn't quite performed up to the billing that people were saying, but he's never lost. He's extremely young. He's extremely confident, and he has great skills, and he can match Alex Perez in the wrestling department. And I feel like Mokaev has shown that he has good submission ability. I mean, he's gotten several submission wins, a lot of them in the later rounds, and good guillotines. And Perez really struggles with the guillotine. I feel like Mokaev is just going to get the submission in this fight. I just don't have a lot of technical analysis in breaking it down, really, because I just don't know what to think of Perez. But I feel like Mokaev is just going to submit him. I don't know if Perez is coming for a payday or what, but I'm going to say Mohamed Mokaev catches a first-round guillotine victory. And for the co-main event, we got a light heavyweight fight between Vito Patrino and Tyson Pedro. Seems like the UFC is kind of trying to slowly build up Vito Patrino, and I think that's the smart thing to do because I think he has a lot of potential. He is big for the weight class. He's extremely athletic, but he still needs to take fights, grow. He's only 10-0. He hasn't fought that many higher level opposition. So I think this is a good matchup for him with Tyson Pedro. We got a UFC vet that at one point was in Vito Patrino's position where he's finishing everybody quickly, looking like the undefeated beast in the division, but quickly kind of changed. He had that loss to Khalil Roundtree where he was winning, and then Roundtree came back and beat him, and since then he's kind of just become a first round can crusher, and when he can't get that done, he loses. So is he going to knock out Vito Patrino in the first round? That's kind of the question if you think Tyson Pedro has a chance to win, and I do think there's a possibility of that just because Patrino, to me, isn't the greatest striker, but he's very explosive even though he's hittable, and he can crack himself. I feel like he's going to be the faster guy and more aggressive guy as well. It's just if he runs into a shot early, to me, that's Pedro's path to victory. And then Pedro could potentially give him some issues early on the ground, maybe. I mean, he does have a black belt and things like that, but I just don't have a lot of faith in Pedro being able to get much going against a beast in the grappling and wrestling department like Patrino. Patrino's really good at mixing in takedowns and very physical guy. I feel like he's going to be able to hit the takedowns and have better cardio once the two guys start grappling. I feel like Pedro's going to fall off a cliff. Unless Pedro can get him out of there early, I just don't see a lot of paths to victory for him. I think that Patrino's going to be better everywhere after the first round. I think even on the feet. And I like Patrino. I think he's one of these guys that could move into the rankings and be a threat as he gets older and gets more experience. So I think he's going to get past Tyson Pedro. I think he's going to use his wrestling. I think he's going to be able to close that gap on Pedro and avoid the big shots. And I do think Pedro's pretty good at nullifying guys, and I don't know if he's going to necessarily get knocked out. I don't know if he's going to get finished on the ground. I think he's going to be able to stymie a lot of the offensive Patrino and just get held down and accept that position and accept losing the decision. So the overs for me aren't a terrible price, and I think that Patrino is going to win this one, I'll say via decision. And finally, we got the main event here. We got Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He's taking on Shamil Gassiev. And Rozenstruik, he hasn't fought in a while. He's coming in off a layoff here. His last fight, he had that pretty difficult fight and loss. So I think it was good for him to take that layoff after getting dominated by Almeida like that. He is an ATT still, so he's putting in that time on the mats over there and trying to get better with his grappling and wrestling, I'm sure, and that's going to potentially or more than likely be needed if he is going to win this fight. But this is a very intriguing matchup. I mean, we got a old school type of, not old school, but a guy that's been in the UFC for a while now. You know, he's came in the UFC, 2018 or something like that, and moved into the rankings quickly. But more recently, he's kind of fallen off a little bit, lost 3 out of 4. And Shamil Gassiev, he's undefeated in his career, but really hasn't fought anyone good. I mean, his last win over Martin Buday in his UFC debut was an impressive victory, but they're moving him up very quickly. And if he can beat Rozenstruik, he's going to become, kind of this new blood in the heavyweight top 10. So we'll see if he can do that. But I do think it's a interesting matchup. It's a hard matchup for me to predict because I see a lot of people are very confident in Gassiev, and I think they're down on Rozenstruik, but I see this as more of a 50-50 fight because I do think Rozenstruik's going to be improving his wrestling defense, even though maybe he's not going to be able to defend the takedowns of Gassiev in the first round, maybe even the second round. I do think that Rozenstruik can not get finished. I mean, we've seen him do that against Curtis Blades, against other guys with good ground and pound, and Gassiev isn't someone that is a high-level submission artist, so I don't think that's the biggest threat. So if Gassiev takes him down for like 2 rounds and has that game plan, I'd be very, very worried about him getting tired, starting to shoot sloppy shots, and Rozenstruik knocking him out. So ultimately, that's why I think this fight's intriguing, because I think that if Gassiev uses that wrestling game plan, I think that's going to be a mistake, and I think that's going to give Jairzinho a good chance to win, because we've seen Jairzinho get knockouts in the last second of the 5th round, and we've seen Gassiev really gas himself out quickly in fights. So if I'm Gassiev, I'm trying to use my striking in this one. We know Rozenstruik is a really good kickboxer. He has a disgusting jab, really one of the best jabs in the division, good kicks. But he likes to sit in the pocket and look to counter. And sometimes that gets him hit when people are coming downhill with big power shots and land clean on his chin. They could hurt him. We saw Volkov put him on the back foot, drop him, knock him out with the uppercut. We obviously remember the famous knockout with Francis Ngannou. But if Rozenstruik can get his jab going and keep Gassiev at range and land some counters, heavy shots, he could put Gassiev down potentially as well. But Gassiev is a very, very aggressive striker that comes forward, throws heat. And I don't think Rozenstruik necessarily does the greatest when he's put on his back foot like that. I think he likes to be at more of a lower pace striking fight. So I think that Gassiev could back him up, land that rear cross, and get him out of there in the first round potentially. It's just going to, in my opinion, come down to the game plan that Gassiev has, how much Gassiev is really improving, how much Jairzinho improved during the layoff, and if Gassiev is going to be able to catch that knockout early. Because if he can, I think Rozenstruik has a great chance to win if Gassiev can't get him out of there in like the first 8 minutes. But ultimately, I am going to give a prediction of Shamil Gassiev to win. I'm going to say he wins via second round knockout, but I don't have a confident prediction on this one. I think this fight could go either way, and if I was betting it, I would say it's a dog or pass fight, so I'm going to say Gassiev wins, but I think there's more value on Rozenstruik. So there you have it, guys. That's the full card breakdown and predictions video for UFC Vegas 87. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button. Subscribe down below. Put a comment. Let's try to get some more interaction. Share this video. Want to get more views, man, so would really appreciate all the support I could get. And besides that, for my most confident pick of the week, I think it's pretty obvious who everyone's most confident pick should be, and to me that's Umar Nurmagomedov. And as far as the parlay of the week for this week, I'm going to give a parlay with Javi Basharat, Mohamed Mokaev, Eric Anders, and Umar Nurmagomedov. So thanks for watching, guys. Go to Patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru right now. I I believe 11 bets already for UFC Vegas 87. The majority of them are underdog bets, so I think we're going to have a really good night. You can get in for the month of March and have a really good month. Let's try to make some money. We made money the first 2 months of the year. And besides that, guys, I'm going to be back breaking down another fight card soon. I'm going to be giving you guys the predictions for those other 2 fights on this card, probably either later today or tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. And outside of that, I'll talk to you guys soon.